of the Grants Management Office for OMES. And with that, I'll let Jennifer get started.
Good morning. I admittedly don't have a lot to say to you as of we have completed most of what we're doing here, but I do want to tell you sort of what we are doing. If you remember, ARPA was a bill that was kind of done on a number of levels. So there was state money that was available to the state of Oklahoma, and then there was money that was also available to the non-entitlement units or NEUs, which is municipalities. When we started the process, we were awarded originally, here, $238 million to distribute to NEUs. And we received 521 applications of 579 possible applicants, which means that about 90% of our municipalities are participating in the local fiscal recovery fund program. That is impacts 1.36 million Oklahomans in those communities. And so that, to me, is very successful. Our final distribution amount was $237,222,233.48. So we don't have much going forward to offer you through that program. However, if you have questions that, or assistance that you want that you are not getting through the Oklahoma Municipal League or one of the other entities that may be better suited to assist you, we are here at the grants office, and I wanted to tell you our website is oklahoma.gov/ARPA. It has several NEU forums and things and different workshops and webinars posted there. That's available as a resource. And if you have any questions or guidance that you would like on reporting that you can't get answered anywhere else, we are happy to try to assist you. You can reach out to me, Jenny Walford at the grants office, or any of our grants management team who are here today. Can you raise your hands? So if you have questions, you can direct them to those people back there as well. And then I just wanted to ask if anyone has any questions of me. Okay, well, our next much more interesting speaker is Mike Fina. He's the chairman of the board of the Broadband Office.
Now, hang on, she can't leave yet. You guys are very sedate this morning. I'm sitting in the back of the room and I wasn't sure. I couldn't see if you guys were sleeping or not. No, this lady, you have no idea the magic she made happen in order to get money moved and so that you guys could get all your funds. And I don't know that from Municipal Government we've ever thanked you for all the work you did on ARPA and made things happen. So you guys thank her for all the work she did for us. We appreciate it. Good to see you. Hey, Dave. What's up, buddy? Good. You had a shorter drive this morning. You had to go to work. All right. What's my range here? You know, I like to walk around. Trash can to the. All right. Well, if I start getting out there, just yell at me. How's everyone doing this morning? Good. You guys got up to come talk about ARPA stuff? You were brave on a Tuesday morning. So how are you? I'm Mike Fina. I'm the executive director of the Municipal League, but I'm looking at all these faces and I think I've seen and met just about all of you. So I have two lives these days. I'm not only the executive director of the Municipal League, but I'm also the chairman of the Oklahoma Broadband Governing Board. And so we're going to talk about broadband this morning and what's going to be happening over the next actual 5 years. So ARPA is a big part of it, but it's only one piece of what we're doing with broadband. So the big picture is that over the next 5 years, we're going to invest about $1.5 billion into broadband infrastructure in the state of Oklahoma. It's very exciting to be able to do that. When COVID hit and we all went home to work and educate our kids, and this was happening around the country, we learned very quickly that our broadband infrastructure was less than adequate. I mean, it was actually, when you get into rural Oklahoma, rural America, it was pretty much non-existent. And we also learned new things about how we use the internet. Before COVID, how we use the internet was more taking information in. That's how we utilized it. It was a search function for us. But after COVID, or during COVID, it became a two-way communications device. Honestly, we were putting as much data out as we were taking in, and that's because we were going to Zoom meetings, kids were going to class, all the things that we did that we had to function from home, that we all of a sudden were doing virtual. So we learned that we have to have a better internet, not just a one-way type communication. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next 5 years. And how we're going to be doing it is by deploying money that the federal government provided for us in several different pots. We'll start with ARPA because that's actually the money that we have right now in the broadband office that we can deploy. And we have been spending some of that money for broadband infrastructure. But then over the next year, we're going to get a different pot of money called the Capital Projects Fund. That's 167 million. And then finally, we're going to get our last allocation called the BEAD. It'll be the BEAD project. And I just can't ever remember what those acronyms stand for, but it's all for broadband infrastructure. And that is going to be close to $1 billion. Now, why I say close to, and I don't know exactly, is because the way the federal government is deciding how much states get is based on the unserved Oklahomans or unserved Americans in your state. We don't exactly know just how many unserved Oklahomans there are. We're working on that to figure that out in conjunction with the federal government, but unserved by definition through the FCC and the state of Oklahoma is someone that receives 25-3 service. So that means 25-3 up, 3 down. Did I say that right? I always get them confused. That's not very good service. I don't agree with that being, if you have that right now at your house, 25-3, you're probably not satisfied. You're probably not going to watch Netflix on multiple TVs. You're probably not going to be able to surf the internet and have multiple computers or laptops on your internet, on your Wi-Fi. It's not adequate. So our goal is to try and, as we're serving unserved Oklahomans, is to try and upgrade the entire system the best we can with that money. And I think we'll do a pretty good job with it. Now we have some priorities. Who in here would you consider yourself from a rural community? Yeah, there's always more. We got you're hybrid at this point. Yeah. Okay. So our priorities are first rural Oklahoma. We're going to go to rural Oklahoma where broadband does not exist first, and we're going to work our way from there. There's also some other criteria. We also have to go find traditionally like low income areas and depressed areas. We have to start with that. So I'm not going to go to the middle of Oklahoma City where they've got incredible Wi-Fi or incredible broadband and start building from there. And I think that there's a misconception because that's kind of how it always seems to happen in this state, that Oklahoma City and Tulsa get all the funds. This one will be different. We will be out in rural Oklahoma first. Now, why this is important to our municipalities. I can't go into the middle of nowhere county and create broadband. It has to start somewhere. And where you're going to find our bigger infrastructure for broadband that's already existing is going to be in municipalities. And that's going to be a good thing for our municipalities. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat it too much. It's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt too, because you're going to have people in your right-of-ways putting fiber in for the next 5 years at a very fast pace. So we're trying to also help manage those problems as well with some legislation that OML's pushing forward at the state capitol to try and protect our right-of-ways. But what I would tell you is that I know that can be an annoyance at times, and they're going to hit a water line here and there and maybe a sewer line. You got to hold them accountable, but just know that when they're done with their work and we have this incredible internet, be able to provide this incredible broadband for you guys, that it'll be worth it in the end if you guys can just endure through it. And then hopefully they don't cause too much of a mess in their wake. But your residents want it. I promise you that when everybody has high-speed broadband, life's going to get better, because Then this is where I'll get on my soapbox for just a second. Why I'm so passionate about broadband as the OML director is because I look at rural Oklahoma and there are three things that are causing the exodus and the deterioration of rural Oklahoma. First is lack of economic opportunities, lack of educational opportunities, and lack of healthcare. Well, broadband can help in all three of those. The first two are pretty obvious how broadband can help. The third one's not as clear, but I want to healthcare. So I want to talk about healthcare for just a little bit. I want to talk about a couple of projects that are already out there that are a internet-based solution for healthcare. The Oklahoma Department of Libraries, in 7 of our libraries, and we're about to expand that to a few more, have healthcare pods in the library. You can go into your rural municipal, most of them are municipal libraries. A couple of the ones that we've funded are in tribal libraries, but most of them are municipal libraries. You go in there, you can sit in the privacy of your own little pod. It has the stethoscope, it has the heart rate monitor, and you are looking at a doctor on the screen. If you have insurance, you can provide the insurance. If you don't, it's still free of charge to people without insurance. So now we're helping low income, the uninsured, all at a library, and you can do basic medical functions there. And that takes care of a ton of the healthcare problems in rural Oklahoma. I mean, when a cold can turn into pneumonia for an elderly person because they weren't treated because the nearest doctor was 2 cities or 2 towns over, that's a problem. So we're figuring out how to bring technology and help with the healthcare part of it. And that, I think the saddest story that I always see when someone has lived in especially a rural town their entire lives, and then they get to the time of their life where they should be enjoying life, but they just can't take care of that home anymore. And then they have to leave that home, sell that home, and they can't stay in their hometown. They have to go to an Oklahoma City or Tulsa or a larger municipality that has facilities that will take care of them. And we should never do that to people that want to spend their entire lives in their home. I mean, it's essentially what it is. So I think we can help all of that with broadband. And if we bring more economic opportunities and we grow our rural municipalities, and we create more income, then people are gonna stop leaving, and we're gonna start creating jobs, and then our schools are gonna grow. So it all works off one another. So I think this investment, honestly, is the most important investment that this state and this country has probably made in the last 50 years. I mean, the interstate highway system is the only thing that's comparable to about what we're about to do over the next 5 years. So I'm very excited about it, obviously, very passionate about it. So here's what you need to look for. Right now, some of you have probably had internet service providers that have already showed up at your city hall trying to tell you all the great things that they're going to do for your community. And some of them are doing a really great job. But if any one of them have told you that they're receiving money from the state to do this, that's not true, because we haven't handed out dollars for that process just yet. We will be, but there's going to be a very extensive evaluation process when an ISP comes in and asks and applies for those dollars. One of the number one things that we look at is going to be current community partners. And what I mean by that is, well, since Dave came from Kingfisher, that is like the perfect example. Pioneer Telephone props up Kingfisher. I mean, they have been there forever. I think they're over 100 years old and have always supported Kingfisher. And I imagine if you went to the baseball field or the football field in Kingfisher, there's probably big Pioneer Telephone placards out there. You guys know the community partners I'm talking about. We want to prioritize those. I always joke that I thought after the federal government announced $1.6 billion, there was probably more new broadband companies that were created at the Secretary of State, like overnight, all the broadband LLCs. But those aren't the ones that we're looking for. We want people that are established in Oklahoma that we know are going to work with our communities. And that means municipalities. I mean, honestly, when I say that, our communities, I'm saying municipalities. So I'm going to be very critical of ISPs asking for money if they're not there working with you. A lot of municipalities are thinking, well, maybe we should be broadband providers, because municipalities do it. We have 4 in the state, right? Well, 3 in the state, and I have 2 that I think will do it as a result of these dollars. But I will tell you, I wish I could tell you, here's the roadmap to do it, but the truth is there's so much growth already going on with all the ISPs across the state. Your opportunity to really get into that business is has probably passed you by. There's some unique opportunities out there for municipalities. And if you have one that you think works, I'd love to talk to you about it. But there's only been a couple that I really feel like could have some legs and be successful. But so in the alternative, what you need to be doing is working with those internet service providers, the ones that you trust, pick the right ones that are going to be partners. And, there's potential for franchise agreements, different things where there could be some revenue, but don't ever lose sight of the fact that the payoff for your municipality is not on the front end, it's on the back end. Once we build this infrastructure and those three pillars start to improve, that's when your municipality is going to get better. So don't get greedy on the front end. But if there is revenue opportunities, I'm not discouraging that either. So, okay, so how this is going to work, I mentioned those three different pots. Right now, do you remember when the state received their, we're doing on time, okay. When the state received their $1.9 billion that Jane was talking about, just been a while back. So what the state did, and it was, they had the right intention. They said, hey, we've got this money. If you're interested, and here's kind of the criteria. They created a web portal where you could go onto that portal and you could submit for a project. And you could also submit just ideas like what should the state do with 1.9 billion extra dollars? Well, by the time the portal closed, we had about 19 and a half, is that right, Jenny? About $19.5 billion in requests for $1.9 billion of actual money. I don't math, but I know those two things don't fit together very well. And of that 19 plus billion dollars, $4.3 billion of that was for broadband specific projects. Well, the legislature allocated us, the broadband office, $382 million or $387 million. So even with $4.3 billion in request and $387 million, I can't make those numbers work either. So that's why we have to be very selective on who gets that money as we give it to the right partners that are going to get the job done. And in the end, right now you can go to the FCC website and they have a map and you can zero in Oklahoma and you can look at it and you can understand kind of what the condition of broadband in the state of Oklahoma is. And you'll see on there is that if you're in unserved Oklahoma, there's a bunch of red dots on there. And if you're unserved, you're red. If you're served, you're green. Well, as the FCC told us very simply, our job is to turn red dots to green. So we're going to use that money and go to the places where there's unserved Oklahomans, and we're going to start turning those red dots green using our partners, and we'll do it through those three funds. The ARPA fund will be the one that's a little more flexible than our other two funds, just because the nature of ARPA was different than where we got the other dollars. So you'll see us funding quite a bit of projects. Actually, we're working on a really cool project right now. We're hoping we get it done, that we want to fund out of it, that would bring free Wi-Fi access to every state park. Well, I'm not going to say every state park. There's just a couple that are very small, most state parks. But that's actually, one, that's a great addition for our state parks. And two, it's a safety issue. In some of our more remote state parks, if you get out into the wilderness, you're not getting any coverage. And we're talking about building a Wi-Fi network that will cover the entire state park. So you'll see some projects like that. But then with our other two funds, the Capital Project Fund and the BEAD program, that is strictly for broadband infrastructure. Now, let's talk about broadband infrastructure for a minute, and I'll try not to bore you too much with my dorkiness. We're focusing on fiber first. But that doesn't mean that we're going to get fiber to everybody's home. But we are going to get enough fiber infrastructure out there where we can serve all Oklahomans. So we're going to focus on that first. And then in some of Oklahoma is really unique. We got 12 ecoregions in Oklahoma. If you're on the southeast part of the state, can be in dense forest. But then if you go to the northwest corner, you're in desert. It makes for everything in between, including swampland. It makes for a very interesting infrastructure build to have to deal with all those different kind of ecosystems. So no two projects are going to be alike. They're all going to be very unique in how we approach. But we do want to focus on fiber. And then when we get to the point where we just can't reach people with fiber, our second choice is fixed wireless. Now, fixed wireless is, I want to be specific because who has at their, who lives, we had a lot of rural folks in here. Anybody have the antenna on their top of the house and have the line of sight, that WISP technology? Okay. When I say fixed wireless, that's what I'm talking about. You're probably not very happy with that service. That WIS technology has, you have to be able to, that antenna on your house has to be able to see another antenna somewhere in order for that to get from there to your house. And if there's wind, trees, anything can disrupt that signal. But the fixed wireless is a little different. It works like your mobile phone does, and it actually works through the same technology. So it can go through things. Now it does have some limitations, but we can achieve very fast speeds with the fixed wireless. So I don't want you to get confused when I say wireless and you think, oh no, I'm going to have one of those antennas on my house. That's not how it works. This is US Cellular, Verizon, AT&T. A lot of the big boys use a lot of fixed wireless. So, and you keep hearing 5G technology. Well, that all plays into it. That's what we're talking about, as fast as wireless as you can possibly get, but not antenna. So we'll utilize that. And then there are some instances where who's got DSL where they have the cable line, like who has Cox? Anyone have Cox Communications? They do a lot. So they do a lot, still do a lot of copper lines. They're switching over to fiber. We'll utilize some of that as well because there's a lot of existing infrastructure in there. We can achieve really fast speeds with that technology also, but what we'll have to upgrade are the equipment that pushes the internet signal. So we're going to utilize some of that existing infrastructure because it is still very good infrastructure. But again, fiber first. So that's what you're going to see the most of us doing out there is fiber. We'll invest the $1.6 billion over the next 5 years. Our agency goes away in 5 years. The government said they said, look, get your work done and get out of town. And I couldn't be happier about that. I don't want this to go on longer than 5 years. We want to get the money deployed and get it out the door. So that's what's going to be happening. As ISPs come to you and are asking questions about your community, you can always reach me at OML. And now we've got a pretty great staff that we're putting together at the broadband office. You can also reach them. But for municipal specific, if you reach out to me, I'd be happy to walk you through what it means when people, they're showing up and they're asking you to sign agreements and do things like that. Before you sign anything, please call me and let's have a conversation. I've been having these conversations for the last year. I'm here to protect you and make sure you do what's right for your community. I'm going to be honest with you. It's an interesting industry. There are multi-billion-dollar corporations that are involved in this, and then there's some small, sometimes snake oil type salesmen that are going to show up at your door. So I just want you to be really smart and don't get your community into a bad situation with someone that's not a great community partner. But majority of them, pretty good people. All right, that was a lot. What questions you guys have? I answered them. Nope. Who's first? I don't know that yet because we're right now, one of the things that our office is working on is creating the state broadband plan. There you go. I forgot about these. We can throw these around. I've been throwing it, Dave. We're working on our plan. And so we'll have a little better time frame. But here, let me give you the good news. Whether you're first or you're last, we're covering the whole state. So we are coming to you. And if you're in rural Oklahoma, you're going to be closer to the top of the list. Where are you from? What?
Taft.
Taft. Oh, like Taft. Yeah, I don't know where you guys will be on there, but I know how remote you guys are. You'll be somewhere, I would say, towards the first of the bill. So, the question is, is there a place to go find where you would be in line in the infrastructure build? And the answer was, we don't know yet. You had a question. Did you like this?
Is it on? Yeah, okay. Something that affects a lot of communities is a lot of those on groundwater, they're our water wells are on old copper line, and the cost to do that fiber just isn't there. So I don't know if there's any opportunity to partnership for those with full SCADA or wanting to go full SCADA that can benefit through the broadband. I know the rural communities are very important, but even some that have good fiber in the community don't have it 2 or 3 miles north.
Um, that was a really good question.
Well, it wasn't I mean,
No,
while you guys are forming and moving.
There is a good question there. Let me tell you why. Okay. So we're just going to pick ABC broadband company or telephone company. When they're asking for money, I'm going to look at their current footprint. And when I look at their footprint, it's going to look like an amoeba. It's just going to not have squared shape to it whatsoever. And the reason why that is because that internet provider or telephone company, they went out and got this area because there were 10 homes, but they missed this area because there was only one home. And they'll talk about return on investment, and it just didn't make financial sense to go get that home because there were 10 homes over here, and that'll repeat itself on. I don't care about return on investment because I take that out of the picture. What I'm going to look at when I look at their area is I'm probably going to draw a square around it because that's a lot cleaner and my brain works better like that. And I'm going to look and say, okay, you might get all these people here, but I've got all these unserved Oklahomans out here. Now, us working together, how much is it going to cost to get all that? So those things that you're talking about, those are things we absolutely would be covering, especially in rural Oklahoma. And you hit on an issue that, we get our rural infrastructure gets spread out in our rural communities. We did this in Piedmont, and I mean, Piedmont's weird. It's like half urban, half rural. But we put our infrastructure out where maybe our municipality owns land or whatever makes sense. And so and when you look at the master plan, you're thinking, why in the heck did we put the pond over here and the barn over there? But that's just the way it gets with infrastructure. So yeah, we have to take all those things in consideration. And we don't look at it as Oklahomans, but as Oklahoma structures. I'm not getting internet to you. I'm getting it to your home, to your business, to your municipality. So really, when I say those red dots green, those aren't Oklahomans. Those are structures that need broadband. So that's how we look at it. But we'll get that. That was a really good, actually. I know it wasn't a question, but it turned into a good one. So it makes sense. Okay. What other questions? We got great microphones to throw around, so might as well take advantage of them.
We have. So currently, north of our community, the local telephone company is running lines to connect with their building that's within our municipality. Is that some of the ARPA funds that are already being put to work, or
Who's
are
your
they
tele-
putting-
which telephone?
It's Chickasaw Telephone.
Chickasaw? Quite possibly. It could be. I mean, I need to know a lot more about it, but right now the ARPA funds are the only things that are out there. And if they wouldn't have got those from us. I haven't given Chickasaw any money just yet, but there's different places they could have received those funds from.
The gentleman from the phone company came by, happened to catch me at City Hall last week. And, he had the maps that ODOT had given him and was asking for the easement, and said that we would start to see within the community itself where they were flagging the areas that they were going to be working.
Now, what community are you from?
Springer.
Okay. All right. So probably what's happening there. So now Chickasaw Telephone is not part of the Chickasaw Nation. That's
correct.
But Chickasaw Nation has Trace Fiber, which is working. I know this is crazy, but this is how this actually works. They launched Trace Fiber, which they'll be putting out fiber, and they'll also be providing internet service, and they are working with Chickasaw Telephone to do that. So probably what you're seeing is an investment by the tribes more than anything. And in your area, the Chickasaws will probably be putting in a heck of a lot more fiber than the state will, is just my guess, because they have a healthy amount of money that they received from, and if I didn't say that, I apologize. On top of our money, tribes were eligible to apply for these same funds. And so far, we've had 13, if I'm remembering correctly, 13 tribes that have received funding, and Chickasaws are one of them. So you're going to see a lot of tribal specific projects out there. Now, we have to work with the tribes on it. We can't overbuild their projects. They can't overbuild ours, but they can also apply for our money. So if we're looking at Springer and all those areas out there and think that there's a valuable project to get more unserved Oklahomans, we might even partner with the Chickasaws and Chickasaw Telephone to get that done. So, other questions? Hi, Elizabeth. Okay, well, I guess I can be on time to my next meeting. So, listen, I hope you guys have a great day. This has been quite an adventure, this ARPA thing since it started, and probably the biggest part, and one I'm going to call out Christian here in a good way. There was a time where we had so much money, but we had no idea how we were going to get it to you guys. There was, I can't remember how many, everyone hates the term NEU. I don't particularly like it either, but it's what the federal government gave. All of the non-NEUs, their money came directly from the federal government, and those were all of our municipalities over 50,000. But you guys, which the majority of our 587 municipalities are all under that size, and we didn't have a mechanism to make that happen. And OML, working with the state of Oklahoma and our consultant Guidehouse, we had to build that, and it was quite an adventure. Jenny's back there and Christian, they're both shaking their head in order to make that happen. So a lot of work went in to get you guys here. So now you can spend your dollars and do some good things in your community. So be wise with the dollars. Rely on, we're here to help and whatever you need. But you're going to do some great things with that. And I'm just excited to see what the state looks like after all this investment. And we're here to help. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. We have some cookies and drinks are in that Coca-Cola thing back there if you want water or pop. And then for all of you online, we sent out that presentation in an email, but it's also in the chat. So if you need that presentation for the next presentation, it should be in your chat. So thank you. for that.
It's on my channel 1. Yeah. What's the? Antitrust attorney.
That one's gonna be level. I'm gonna crank these others down. You said the catch boxes are 5 and 6?
Yeah.
It does sound good. I think it's just a long test. Test.
Okay. It just might have been bumped just slightly too high.
Okay.
Mic check. All right. Okay, we're going to get started here with the walkthrough. As I said earlier, my name is Christian Reinhardt. I'm the Associate General Counsel of Oklahoma Municipal League. We're going to go over several different things today in regards to ARPA. This is kind of an agenda of what we're going to go over. The uses and rules first. Next, we're going to go over SAM.gov, the ARPA report walkthrough, and then we're going to have a panel discussion and Q&A. If you could please hold all of your questions until that panel discussion. Sarah can help with the online people. If you have questions online, just submit those in the chat box, and we'll be able to answer them during the panel. All right. So one thing I learned about ARPA is there's a lot of rules on what the funds can be spent on. You know, there's long Code of Federal Regulations text, and it's kind of hard to read all of that stuff. So the federal government put together some really helpful, useful resources. And if you're online, you should have this information. It's been emailed out and it's also in the chat box, but these are all hyperlinks. So this is just frequently asked reporting questions for troubleshooting. The Treasury put together this page for that. And they also have issues with the Treasury portal. Yeah. Okay, we're just gonna hook the PowerPoint up so the people online can see it. But just so you know, all of these links are helpful resources. And if you haven't looked at them yet, I would encourage you to look at them. One document I really like is the frequently asked questions about uses. So I get a lot of questions about whether like the Davis-Bacon Act applies or some other federal provision. And those answers really direct you to the best place to find that. And then at the bottom here, we've got the OML website. It's oml.org/American Rescue Plan Act. And on that website, we have lots of information and links to the federal Treasury's website. And we also have the reporting session from last year. So if you want to know a bit how other municipalities are using the funds, last year, Sand Springs gave a great presentation on that. If you go to the ARPA website and you click on reporting, you can see all of the information from last year's reporting workshop. Okay. First, we're going to cover ARPA uses and rules. So there are 5 main categories that you can spend ARPA funds on, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, but I'd like to cover it again for anyone who's new to their position and doesn't really know about ARPA. So the 5 major categories of eligible uses are public health expenditures, addressing economic impacts of COVID-19, replace lost public sector revenue, premium pay for essential workers, and then last is invest in sewer, water, and broadband infrastructure. Now, the most important category of all of those categories is category 3, which is replaced lost sector revenue. It's also referred to as revenue loss or revenue replacement. And under this category, a municipality can use their entire allotment of ARPA funds for general government services. What this means is that you can use your ARPA funds on any service that is traditionally provided by a government, unless the Treasury has stated otherwise. And they give some common examples here, but they say the list is not exhaustive. So construction of schools and hospitals, road building and maintenance, other infrastructure, health services, general government administration staff, administrative facilities, environmental remediation, provision of police, fire, and other public safety services. And then underneath that, they say, note also that every use that is eligible under the other eligible use categories is also eligible under revenue loss. So with that, revenue loss is a lot easier to report, and it's a lot easier to spend the funds. So if you've received less than $10 million, the Treasury strongly recommends that you use revenue loss when you go to report. And more than likely, that's how you reported last year. If you weren't the person reporting, I'm sure that the person reported last year under revenue loss. But if they didn't, you can edit that, and I'll talk more about that later. And if you're wondering where this information comes from, it's from the final rule overview, page 11. So as I mentioned, government services generally include any service that's traditionally provided by a government. The key is under the standard allowance option. You are not actually required to have a revenue loss. It's a common misconception because people are like, well, we gained money during COVID. How can we use revenue loss? The Treasury actually presumes that you lost up to $10 million. So even if, like I said, if you gained money, you could still use the revenue loss category, and you don't have to show any proof of that. If you'd like an example of how to use your funds, water and sewer is a great option. I've talked to a lot of municipalities who are using it for water and sewer. OMAG could help you with that. They have a SLRAT. If you want to use it for sewer lines, you can see what lines are bad and what lines are good. I'll put a link there for that. Okay, if you have a premium pay program, I don't know how many of you have done this, but I talked to some municipalities and they want to pay their employees an extra salary or a bonus, so to speak. There's a direct FAQ on this. It's page 36, and there's some common compliance and reporting guidance. The most important thing to do with payroll is have a written policy determining eligibility, and you cannot pay premium pay to volunteers. So that's very important to note. And there are also some tax considerations. So if you do provide premium pay to your employees, you want to make sure and look at the IRS's website for taxes with ARPA. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about what you cannot use the funds on. While the funds are very broad under revenue loss, there are some things that you cannot use the funds on. For instance, making a deposit into a rainy day fund, paying off any type of long-term debt that you may have with your municipality, and you cannot pay a settlement. So for instance, if you lost a judgment, you cannot use the ARPA funds to pay for that. And you cannot do anything that violates state law, so you need to make sure and follow the Competitive Bidding Act. While these are federal funds, that does not excuse you from getting around the Competitive Bidding Act. You would still have to follow that and any other federal standards that might apply. As I mentioned, you cannot use the funds for a rainy day fund. And what that really means is that you have to obligate the funds by 2024, actually December 31st of 2024, and expend the funds by December 31st of 2026. So those are very important dates to keep in your mind. And if your council members don't know of them, or if your town board of trustees members don't know about those dates, please tell them. You have a small window to spend this, and there are only so many contractors in Oklahoma. So you want to make sure and spend the funds in a prudent manner as soon as possible. So under the frequently asked questions document, there is a question about whether you need to include certain language in your bidding packages if you're using revenue loss, and you do not, but there is certain language that you should be including in your contracts. So if you've already had a contract and you didn't include this language, you could talk to your municipal attorney about it and see what he or she would prefer to do. You could have an extra document or something like that, but just be aware that this is out there and that it is a federal requirement. Then I have a link here to the full frequently asked questions. So on the OML website and also on the Oklahoma ARPA website, there's a best practices document that the state of Oklahoma and Guidehouse put together. This document is really helpful if you've never spent federal funds before. If you do report under the revenue loss, you do not have to follow all of the federal procurement standards. This one here specifically says subparts D and E of the uniform guidance apply to the use of such funds. In general, these requirements provide that recipients should not deviate from their established practices and policies regarding the incurrence of costs, and that recipients should expend and account for the funds in accordance with the laws and procedures for expending and accounting for the recipient's own funds. So essentially, you need to make sure that you are accounting for this exactly how you would with your own funds. So while the ARPA permissible uses are very broad, it's important to keep the mission or goal of ARPA in mind. It's really to provide a strong, equitable recovery from the pandemic. And the specific goals from the Treasury state that ARPA is for to support the immediate pandemic response, bring back jobs, and lay the groundwork for a strong and equitable recovery. So when I first thought about ARPA, I thought, what is this project like historically? And the answer is there's really no project. In the United States history, no municipality has received this amount of funding directly from the federal government. The closest thing really would be like the Works Progress Administration program or something like that. If you'd like to see how other communities across the United States are using their funds, the National League of Cities put together a tracker. It's really larger municipalities have reported on that. So the second and third distributions were delivered this fall. In your bank account for your municipality, you should receive 3 distributions from the ARPA funds. You need to make sure that all of those funds are there and that they're accounted for, and you put them either in a separate fund or something like that. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But if you have questions about how much your municipality received, the state of Oklahoma has published all that information on the Oklahoma ARPA website, which is linked here. And it specifies your first payment, your second payment, your third payment, and then the total amount. Okay, next we're going to talk about the report and SAM.gov help. But if you're wondering how you should prepare for this report, you it would be helpful to pass a resolution, budget correctly, and document how you were obligating and spending the ARPA funds with the exact cost. So it's not actually required to pass a resolution. It is strongly recommended though, so your municipality knows how you're spending those ARPA funds. And there's a video about the NEU reporting from the Treasury. Okay, next, sam.gov help. So for those of you who do not know, SAM is a governmental website. Basically, anybody who wants to do business with the federal government has to sign up on sam.gov. It's just validating that you are who you say you are. There are several sam.gov scams. I actually received this postcard from a municipality last week. And at the top here, it says, SAM expiration alert, please respond within 5 days. But in the very small print at the bottom here on the right side, it says, this is a solicitation for SAM registration renewal service. This offer is not from a government agency. So occasionally people will call these numbers thinking that they can help with sam.gov, and really they're wanting you to pay them a lot of money. This one in particular was asking for over $500 to help with sam.gov. Now there are some companies that can help you with sam.gov registration if you want, but $500 is way, way too much. So keep that in mind. So there's a new number called a UEI number. How many of you have seen that in your reports? Okay, almost everyone here? Okay, great. A UEI is a number issued by sam.gov, and why it is important is because it is replacing the DUNS number. DUNS is a private company known as Dun & Bradstreet, and the federal government wanted to bring the numbering system in-house, so they changed that to the UEI number. Information about the transition can be found on this link, and there's a walkthrough video also. If you're curious about how to obtain a UEI number or you need help with sam.gov, this would help with that as well. So part of the UEI and sam.gov process for this year is adding the articles of incorporation for your municipality. A lot of municipalities have struggled with this because when Oklahoma was formed in 1907, a lot of the municipalities were already existing. And the Oklahoma Constitution just says all municipalities existing in Oklahoma shall continue to exist. There was no, information exchange from the municipalities to Oklahoma. They didn't have to send in their articles of incorporation to prove they existed. So if those documents exist at all, they would be with the federal government or perhaps your county, or just by sheer luck, someone gave them to the Secretary of State. And if you are curious about where you can find those documents for your municipality, if they exist, I put together a list of the best places to go. Like I said, your county clerk, the National Archives in Kansas City, those kind of places will help you figure out where you can find your articles of incorporation. If you're lost trying to complete your sam.gov registration, you can watch the video and FAQs. Or you can also reach out to OML or OMAG, and we'd be glad to help you with sam.gov. Pamela Honeycutt from OMAG helps with that as well. And if you're still lost, you can also call SAM. They have a direct help hotline. While it can be very overwhelming for a small municipality dealing with sam.gov, you do not need to pay $500, as I said earlier. You can figure out how to do it. Oh, and if you cannot find the articles of incorporation after going through all of those places to look at, you can also call Senator Langford's office. Senator Langford has a page on his website that talks about how he can help with federal agencies. I just called his office the other day, and this is something they're willing to help with. So there's also a requirement that you have a physical address with sam.gov. If you only have a PO box or something like that, I would encourage you to talk to Senator Langford's office to see what he can do to help. Finally, if nothing else works and Senator Langford can't help you or something like that, you can actually call the Secretary of State's office and start the process for essentially affirming that you are an incorporated municipality. So there's a state statute that says You basically provide some historical documentation to the Secretary of State's office. After you provide that documentation, there's a 60-day waiting period, and then you are officially incorporated in Oklahoma. And there's the number to call for that as well. Now be mindful that does take 60 days, so that should be your last option. Okay. This is the ARPA reporting walkthrough. So if you're curious about where to go to report at, it's portal.treasury.gov/compliance. And you need to make sure you're using Google Chrome as your browser. If you use some other type of browser such as Edge, it may not work. If the person who submitted the report last year is no longer available, you will need to contact the Treasury to fix that issue. Now, I wouldn't encourage you to call the Treasury if you have the login information from the last person. You can log in and assign yourself a role, or if you know the last person, you can call them and ask them to help you out. It does take a while with the Treasury to get you added if you're not added yet, but you can email COVID IT relief support at treasury.gov, and you just need to put in your issue. You need to give as much information as possible so they know you're legitimate. And there's also a Treasury help number if you don't hear a response in a couple days that you can call. So if you were logging in for the first time, you just need to click create an account. So after you email the Treasury and they give you a login, you just click create an account and then you can log in that way. And if you don't remember your password, just click forgot password. So if you've emailed the Treasury and they don't respond, here's the number you can call. It is 844-529-9527. Just tell the Treasury your case number. That should be in the subject line of your email, and that they sent and returned. Okay, so once you're logged into the report, what you want to do is click on the blue edit pencil on the right-hand side. And in order to get to this page, you have to click compliance reports on the left-hand side. So first step, compliance reports. Second step, click on the blue edit pencil. Now, there was an issue yesterday where a lot of municipalities were not able to see this page. And then there was another issue today where a lot of municipalities clicked on the blue edit pencil, but they were not able to actually log in. So if this is you, please don't panic. They'll probably fix that issue soon. Okay, when you go to this page, you should see 3 reports. One is the NEU agreements and supporting documents that should say submitted. Then the next one is the draft of the project and expenditure report. And then the last one is your report from last year. Okay, after you open it up, the first page that you will see is about bulk uploads. This only applies to municipalities who have spent more than $10 million, or if they have lots and lots of projects to report. So for instance, Oklahoma City, they probably had over 100 different projects that they were spending their own ARPA funds on. Okay, after you click next on that page, you will verify your info on this page, just your DUNS, UEI, all that information. If something is missing, there's a box to report discrepancies. So you just type your information in there and then click next. And then there may be a question if you're registered in sam.gov or not. I'm not for sure on that. It is important to note that you do need to register in sam.gov and obtain a UEI if you haven't, though. Okay, after you click next there, it asks, does your jurisdiction have projects to report for this reporting period? And you will select yes, you do have projects to report, or no, you do not have projects to report. Now, the reporting period that it is asking about is April 1st of 2022 till March 31st of 2023. So just a couple days ago, this reporting cycle ended. That is the time frame for this reporting period. You will need to know what you obligated and what you spent. So you'll just click on Add a new project. This can also be found on pages 26 through 47 of the user guide. And there's also a video as well to help you with it. If you're using another category besides revenue loss, for instance, if you're a large municipality, perhaps Norman or another municipality that's larger and wants to use more than $10 million, you do have to follow the other method of reporting. So keep that in mind. Okay, so when you click add a new project, this is the page that you will see. And if you notice here at the top, it asks the category group. So you will need to select revenue replacement. And then after that, you need to select category 6.1, which is the provision of government services. And then it's going to ask you to put in your project name. That's just whatever you want to put in. Recipient project ID. That's just another box for you to kind of figure out how you want to label it. You don't have to put anything specific there. And then it's going to ask for your total cumulative obligations, total cumulative expenditures, current period obligations, and current period expenditures. We'll talk more about this in detail, but it's really an obligation is an order placed for property and services, contracts and subawards made, and similar transactions that require payment. Okay, after you do that, you'll click next, and then it'll take you to a page called subrecipients. On that page, you also need to click next because that does not apply to the category of revenue loss. Also with the page of beneficiaries, that doesn't apply to you either. And then the final page would be the expenditure page, which does not apply. And then this is what I like to refer to as the most important page on the whole entire report, what you are claiming under revenue loss. So the first question here is your jurisdiction electing to use the standard allowance? So you probably filled this out last year, but if you didn't, make sure you fill this out this year and everything that is correct. So you would need to select yes, that you are using the revenue loss if you want to use the revenue loss. And then you need to make sure that your revenue loss amount matches the amount on the right-hand side of your screen that says the allocated amount. And that amount is also the same amount that is on the Oklahoma ARPA website. But those numbers will not match up because the numbers calculated by last year were different slightly than the numbers that you received. So please make sure that the two numbers match. And then you need to also make sure that your description is accurate. So there's a little description here at the bottom. I recommend putting in about 50 words or so. That's what the user guide recommends as well. Just to tell the Treasury how you're spending those funds, or if you haven't spent them yet, how you plan to spend those funds. Okay, and with that, we are going to go into the panel discussion. So if Jessica and Brenda could come up, we'll get the questions started. And if you have questions at all, just raise your hand and we'll throw a catch box at you.
Green. There it goes.
Yeah, should be on.
All right. Brenda, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brenda Wright, shareholder with Crawford and Associates. We know several of you. We do municipal finance work throughout the state of Oklahoma.
I'm Jessica Jansen. I work with NODA and Enid. We are a COG and we serve 8 counties in north central Oklahoma.
Well, I'm going to get the questions started here, but if you have a question from the audience, just please raise your hand and we'll throw the catch box at you. And then for online, just ask your question in the chat and Sarah will ask it to the panel. Okay, first, Brenda, how would you define obligations and expenditures for this ARPA report.
An obligation is what have you committed to pay for? Basically, what have you encumbered using ARPA funds to pay for? That is your obligation. An expenditure, is that what they call it?
Yes,
An expenditure is what have you actually written a check for? Of your purchase order that you encumbered, what have you actually paid for? And so when you are looking at the new report you're doing, your total obligations is going to be everything you've encumbered to date under ARPA. Your expenses are going to be what have you paid for? And so that it's pretty much that simple. If you've written the check, it's paid for. Otherwise, it's still under the obligations. But it is your total obligations. So you add them up so that if you have 100,000 you obligated and 100,000 you spent, you still have 100,000 obligation and 100,000 spent. But there can be a difference too, because you could have encumbrances out there that you haven't paid for yet.
Do you have any questions about obligations and expenditures? All right. Well, Jessica, how have your municipalities spent the ARPA funds that you know of?
Most of my municipalities have used their funds for water and sewer infrastructures, and some that they have told me about are servicing and bringing back water well that was not in use because they needed some money to do that, and so that was a great benefit to them. Some are matching with their REAP that they have received for streets. There have been water line replacements, emergency sewer projects, and there was a purchase and install of digital and partial automated water meters. There was an emergency water line repair in one of our super small communities. They have about 10 residents, and they had a water line burst, and they didn't know how they were going to pay for it. And so when I was helping her go through this process, she was really excited about this money because they were able to pay for that water line replacement. So, and that's about the bulk of it.
Could you talk about how NODA can help with ARPA funds?
So most of you all, I hope you're familiar with the COG in your area. If not, if you can share my email and I'll help you get in touch with your COG. But what I do is I was hired under the CARES Act funds, and I am pretty much a general ARPA and SAM.gov and what else support. So I set up Zooms or in-person meetings with all of my municipalities, and I help them walk through their reports. I answer questions. If I don't know the answer, I call Christian. That's why we've become friends. And pretty much just am their support for helping them get through this process. I also help with sam.gov, and we just, I'm pretty much a connection, a face that they know to call and make the extra effort to get their questions answered and make sure that they feel secure in doing the report and getting their sam.gov number done, so on and so forth.
I have a question. Does every COG have an ARPA support person?
I don't know. I don't think that every COG has a designated. This was kind of a role that our office designated me for because I was the right fit, I guess. So, but most COGs are very well versed on ARPA, and I'm sure that they could help. If they can't, I'm happy to be a contact person for them to reach out to and ask as well, or contact Christian. He's great. So.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience? Open it up to general questions. Yes. Well, I'll bring you the box here. There you go. I didn't throw it at you.
I'm not familiar with COG.
Okay, a COG is a council of government. So we have a board and they make decisions. I'm still pretty new to the whole process, but we serve 8 counties, and we also have a kind of a sister COG called OEDA, which serves more northwestern Oklahoma all the way out through the Panhandle. And in our office, we have economic development. So My supervisor does EDA projects, and then I also have a coworker who does GIS mapping, so CIP planning. Then we have Jennifer who does REAP and CDBG grants. And then we also have a transportation department. So, and every cog I think is a little bit different based on the programs that they have. Like we were very much cultivated to fit the region of where we are.
So it's per region.
Yes, there's different regions, and I'm sure that we can find your cog. Where are you located?
Stevens County.
Okay, so I'll check for you, and if you get my contact info from, just shoot me an email, and we'll get you connected to your cog.
How long is it taking to get the SAM's number? I remember that being an issue when we first started
So
because they were transitioning.
I had the same lady from Jefferson come in my office the other day with the little pink note card. And that's another thing. Our people in our municipalities and counties feel very comfortable coming to us because they know that we're a very neutral party and we're there to serve them. We don't charge them to do things like this because they're members of our COG. And so when she came to me, she was worried that they were going to charge her for the service. And I said, I'm glad you came. Don't worry about it. We logged on, we uploaded, and they were actually one that didn't have articles of incorporation. Many of our municipalities had that issue. And so what I do is I contact the court or the county clerk, and usually they have a document that's handwritten minutes. Like this one was from 1894, and you couldn't read it because the penmanship was, I mean, it was beautiful, and I wasn't ever taught to read that kind of cursive, but they somewhere had scratched in Jefferson on the side of those minutes, and they accepted it, and we got the UEI, I would say less than 7 days later. So it's very
So we need to
much
do that
improved
quickly.
over what it was
So
6
it's
months.
not really a SAM's number, it's a UEI.
I believe so. It was,
Well,
well, there's a cage code.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's several numbers with a process, but yeah, it's also referred to as SAM's number or UEI number. It's the same thing. But yeah, there's also a cage code for some reason.
Number, because with 911 and changes in the community, our address, they had like 4 different addresses for us. It seemed to be causing a problem.
Mhm.
So at that point, and then we didn't have to have the number to file the initial report. So I don't know if this case number is still open.
I do know that I was with Major County yesterday at their meeting, and I was talking to their treasurer, and she had a few issues, kind of like you're describing. And she said that she got connected with a support person, and that support person was fantastic and actually would call her every couple days to make sure she didn't have any questions. And she said that they got their stuff resolved within the week. So I'm happy to help you if you want to do it after this, or I would just call them and find somebody and keep their information so that you can get a hold of them.
All right, Sarah, we have some questions online.
Okay, first question. Okay, if the town is paid for a replacement of a tiny bridge because of water flow, can we still use some for water and wastewater too?
So you don't have to use your ARPA funds for just one project. You can actually use them for as many projects as you want. If you specified, on last year's report, we want to use our funds for a bridge, and then it turns out this year you've changed your mind, you want to use it on a bridge and multiple other things, you can update your report to say that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, can you use grant funds and ARPA funds on the same project?
Yes, you do need to be aware and follow the rules of the other grant. The ARPA rules allow you to do that. There's a specific FAQ that points this out, but you need to make sure that you're following all the rules on the other grant, whatever they may be, because that would apply to your ARPA funds as well. And vice versa. So. Jessica, do you have anything to add about you matching them with grants? Do you have a lot of municipalities who do that?
We have municipalities that are doing that. I know that REAP works very well, and I do believe that they found out that CDBG can be applied as long as you follow the other CDBG guidelines. So
Is there any more, sir? All right. Is there any more from the audience here? Okay. Brenda, could we talk a bit about the single audits and how that applies to municipalities?
Okay, the federal government requires that if you receive federal funding under grants, and there's a few other items that could fall in there too, and you spent over $750,000 in one fiscal year, you are subject to the single audit. Meaning, in addition to your regular annual financial statement audit, your auditor has to apply special procedures to those grants that were spent. Now, it gets really detailed between major type grants and non-major type grants, but what they're basically going to look for is, did you follow all the rules of the grant and did you spend the money on what you're supposed to spend it on? Well, ARPA has thrown a little bit of a kink in that because a lot of municipalities who have never been subject to a single audit could possibly be subject now. And so that's one thing you have to let your auditor know when you hire them is how much federal money did you spend, not what you received, what did you spend for the fiscal year? Now, there is a little caveat out there that let's say that you are subject to a single audit only because of your ARPA money. All you got was ARPA money. You have no other federal expenditures, and that pushes you into the $750,000. Then your auditor can do a special compliance audit in accordance with the federal guidelines. They have all these guidelines out there over that money. But let's say you have $500,000 of CDBG HUD money and $250,000 of ARPA money you spent. If that's the case and the ARPA money is pushing you into the single audit, there is the option for the compliance audit. But if you have $750,000 of CDBG money and $100,000 of ARPA money spent, you have to do the single audit. You can only take the compliance type route that they're allowing if it is the ARPA money that pushes you in. So you have to really balance what all did we get and what did we spend. If you always get CDBG money and you always have FAA money and you always have FEMA disaster money, you know, more than likely you're going to be subject to a single audit even without your ARPA money. So that's one thing you have to look at and you have to talk to your auditor about is what is causing you to have the single audit and let them make the determination of what is causing it and which route do we have to go here to make sure you're in compliance. And on what they do different is they might not have to prepare your CFA, your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. They won't have to go in depth on monitoring all the things they have to monitor. They have to make sure you spent it right in accordance, that you properly bid. Bidding is big. They have to make sure you have all your policies in place. But there's some other things they might not have to check. But honestly, talk with them before you decide to go the compliance route because they need to determine what caused you to go over that $750,000 limit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have, our tower is up. We haven't received a bill yet from the Next Link, nor have we paid them the $75,000. Does this mean that we report through March 21st, 2023, not spent, but then have to report again next year as spent?
Yes, that is a great question. And that is what it means because you've obligated those funds, but they haven't actually been paid yet. Is that, would you say? That?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Yeah. So, and for those of you who don't know, you do have to report on this every year, even if you spent all of your funds. So let's say you spent all of your funds last year. The federal government has not put together anything yet that says you report one and done. Now your report will probably be a lot easier, but to date they haven't said that if you've spent all of your funds and you've obligated all of your funds, you're done reporting. So just keep in your mind April 30th every year until 2026 and until the federal government says otherwise. So hopefully at some point they'll say if you've spent all of your funds, you don't have to report anymore, but just make sure that you're aware of that. Yes.
Who was the contact for straightening out the street addresses? Our town has a problem of not being recognized, and this is all due to 911 and recognizing physical addresses.
Yes, to be honest, there's not a great contact because this issue has gone on for municipalities for a long time. I would say the best place to call would be Senator Langford's office, just to tell him, look, we only have a PO box for our municipality. We don't have a physical address. SAM.gov is requiring a physical address. What should we do? Jessica, I don't know if you know any other way to fix that issue, but
So the only thing that we have ran into similar to that was we didn't have something, because some of our towns get something sent to their PO box, but they have a physical building. So we have them print off a bill, like they were sending a bill to themselves that had their physical address on it with their name, and that worked.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's proper or not, but it was accepted.
Yeah, I mean, and on the list, if you haven't seen it, there's a list of acceptable documents. It's on that link that I sent as well. It's on the 3rd page. It has, like she said, a bill, a bank statement, something like that. So maybe you could change your address on the bank statement from your PO box to your physical address, or add that on there. Ask the bank if they'd be willing to do that. I don't think that's improper.
Okay, cool.
But, you might want to talk to your municipal attorney about it, just to double check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Citizens who took advantage of the moratorium on paying bills during the COVID pandemic. Is it possible to recover that amount owed to the city for water bills using ARPA funds?
Yes, so you can use your ARPA funds to recover that. You just need to make sure that the timeline matches up. So I think it depends on when the bills happened, but you can use those funds for general government services, which would include, helping citizens out with their utility bills. So yeah, but I would strongly encourage you to talk to your municipal attorney about the program for that. Yes, is there another question from the audience here?
Quick question while we're waiting.
Yep.
Have either of you been in contact with or worked with some of the companies who are helping for a fee,
Yeah.
some of our municipalities or counties spend their funds?
I have not, but as we kind of went over today, it's relatively easy to spend your funds. You can use them for general government services. So I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't feel like there's really a need to contact one of those companies.
Yeah, the issue that we've had is some of our municipalities have been approached by those companies, and they ask us first, is this something we need to do? They say they'll do it for $3,000. And because they're a part of our COG, this is just a service that we have opted to help them do. And so they get to save that money and use it on places where it's needed. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an important note. I would not pay $3,000 for this. So
Right.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yes. Could you hold your question so the online people can hear? Thank you. Go ahead.
Our city council approved for each department to spend up to a certain amount of money in their departments.
Uh-huh.
Can that be the project by department? The project name?
Yes, so you need to look at the text of the user guide, but on the video that they showed from the Treasury, he had one project, and in that project, he had several different things. So you could say, under the project name, like departmental money or something like that. And then in the description, be very descriptive, about 50 words or so, and say, here's the departments it went to, here's how much money, like that kind of thing. But you can do something like that. Yeah. I would just double check the user guide though to make sure you're not missing anything. Yes, over there. She'll throw it through you.
Just to confirm on use and reporting, we are working with the Chickasaw Nation Indian Health Services on a project for upgrading and repairing our sewer system.
Okay.
And so we have done everything that we needed to do with them to this point and have identified the native households within that utilize our sewer system. When we have not heard yet how much of the project they will cover. And we know that we'll have to go after grants for the non-native portion of the expenses. First of all, is that piece an allowable expense for us with these ARPA funds?
Yes, you can use the ARPA funds for water and sewer projects. Again, you just have to make sure you spend it by 2026.
Okay, so is there anything, because we're kind of in a holding pattern right now, that we would need to report on that? Because we don't know what our portion of the expenses will be.
Yeah, so if you don't know any details at all, you can just not report on it. But if you have taken a vote and you've obligated those funds, you need to put that in the report. So,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
you can also, and there's the description box, you can say, we are thinking about using the funds for this, but we haven't used it yet, or we haven't obligated it yet. You can do something like that. I just certainly wouldn't bind yourself to using the funds for a purpose, and then it turns out you don't use them for that. Yeah.
And you said that you were going to search out other grants. If you are eligible and you work with your local COG, you might be eligible for the REAP and CDBG. So that might be something to check into, if not already.
Any other questions? Upstairs got one.
Can funds be spent on a new police station?
Yes, that would be governmental services. So again, anything you would traditionally spend your own government funds on. And the Treasury says, you know, they give a list and they say the list is not exhaustive. Just make sure and check with your municipal attorney when you do that. Yeah. Kevin, did you have one question? No.
Pass this around.
Okay, yeah. If anyone has any more questions, please raise your hand and we'll pass the thing around. Don't be shy. Well, if no one has any more questions, I'd like to hear how you guys are spending some of your ARPA funds. So if you're willing to, if you could raise your hand, and we'll hear how your municipality is spending your ARPA funds.
We recently applied for a RIG grant in the
Uh-huh.
state of Oklahoma, and we're using a portion of our ARPA funds to match that grant.
Okay, great. Yes, back there.
We're spending our federal ARPA funds on sewer improvements, a major sewer line that runs through town and a lift station
Oh, great,
that needs replaced, that we wouldn't have had the money to have replaced otherwise.
great.
State, we're getting new automated meters and a new well field improvement for production and capacity.
Wow, it's have a lot of great projects going in Bethany.
We're spending our funds on rebuilding a lift station too, and then for our water meters that are coming obsolete, replacing those.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Sarah, do you have a question? Does anyone else have examples of how they're spending their funds? Just raise your, oh, right up here. Good.
We're adding storm sirens.
Okay,
Our major purpose is to fund our volunteer fire department. And so we're doing that and updating firemen here.
great, yeah. And with volunteer fire departments, it's important that you don't use those funds to pay the volunteers, but you can use those funds for the upgrades, like you said.
Right.
Well, we look at a lot of municipalities, and I will tell you the biggest thing I see is water and sewer, with sewer being more the emphasis. Because I think in the past few years, people haven't updated their sewer. I see a lot of lagoon expansions in smaller communities and cleaning out the silt in them. That's big right now. We're also seeing a lot of what some of you are doing, using it as matching funds for grants so that they can leverage the money. And I am seeing in some of my communities, a lot of joint projects with the tribes, so that they can, between the tribe and the city, they can get a lot more accomplished. So we are seeing quite a bit of that.
That's great, yeah. And for those of you who don't know, the tribes, I think Mike mentioned this earlier, but the tribes, the counties, the state of Oklahoma, they all receive ARPA money just like municipalities did. So if you haven't reached out to your local tribe yet or your county, I would encourage you to do that. Yes, Sarah?
Can funds be spent to purchase a new trash truck?
Yes. It's provision of government services.
We've been replacing button readers on meters for the past 3 years with radio readers. Can we replace some of the money spent on those new readers?
So that is a good question. Let me go back to it. I have a slide on that. So funds may be used for costs incurred by the recipient beginning on March 3rd of 2021. So anything that you incurred prior to March 3rd of 2021, you cannot use the ARPA funds on. So keep that in mind. Yes.
Is it possible to use for park improvements, walking trails, playground equipment?
Yes, that'd be the provision of government services, and municipalities traditionally have parks, so you could use the funds for that. But if you have any contracts with that and all the other uses as well, make sure you include that ARPA language. Is there any more from the audience here? Oh, one over there.
Hold on.
Could you repeat your question?
Would a park improvement include a splash pad?
Yes. Yeah.
While we're waiting, one of the cool things that we had heard about at our teeny tiny town summit that we had through the Northwest Oklahoma Alliance was, and this was a couple years ago, but using the money, like the town used the money to purchase a rundown building in town and renovate it. So then they were able to lease that building out and continue to receive money. You know, it was like a way of income.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really cool way to use your downtown, update it, and then still have some income coming in from it.
Yeah, sounds like an economic development project, and those
Yeah.
are great for municipalities. Yes.
To piggyback on that, can funds be used to purchase land?
Yes, it has to be for a municipal purpose though. So again, I would talk to your municipal attorney about that, but make sure it's something you would traditionally use your own municipal funds on.
How about raising wages? Would that be good?
So that is something that's a little tricky because it needs to be treated more like a bonus, not like a wage raise, because again, you have to spend them by 2026. So municipalities that I know have done that have really done it just kind of like a one-time bonus.
Can the money be used
Or do you have something to add
to
to that?
replace fire hydrants?
I think Brenda had something.
And back on the wage thing, we caution you on that because this is one-time money. So if you use it for a reoccurring expense, if you give everybody a raise and that reoccurs, every year, there's a point you're going to run out of this money to fund it, and then you have to find a way to fund it. So just keep that in mind. This is one-time money, so it's hard to put it into something that is reoccurring.
So when we all start logging in,
Yes.
and we start having issues, what's our best attack resource? Like, do we email you?
Yes.
What's our?
To reach me, you can email arpa@oml.org, or if you want to reach the Treasury directly, you can just email COVID IT Relief Support. It's on this PowerPoint, or SLFRF. For some reason, they have two emails. The COVID IT Relief Support is more for like login issues, and the SLFRF is just general questions. And if you don't receive a response, I would strongly encourage you in 2 or 3 days to call the Treasury. They have a hotline available, and you don't have to wait that long. I just called yesterday and I didn't have any waiting time at all. So not that many people are using that, and I would encourage you to use that. Yes, sir.
Is there specific language needed in the land purchase contract? Land purchase for wastewater treatment or land purchase for facility renovations?
Yes, I have the slide on what languages and when needed. It's also FAQ 13.6. It's everything listed in 2 CFR Part 200 Appendix 2. It just says that recipients must ensure all contracts made with the award funds contain the applicable contract provisions. So that would include purchase of land. Yes.
Today, or do you have to wait for a certain day to do that?
That is a great question. So the reporting period is open from April 1st till April 30th. So during that time period, you can report any hour or day that you would like. You don't have time to report during the day, you can report on Saturday. As I just showed you, the report is really easy. You can finish the whole thing in less than 20 minutes if you have all of your information ready. The hardest part is logging in. So if you don't have your login information, you really need to get on that today. Are there any other questions, Sarah? Okay.
Using wages under revenue loss, do we use gross wages?
Oh, that one I don't know. I would have to research that one.
Yeah, I don't know that one either, off the top of my head. There on this FAQ document that I have on the page up here, if you click this link, I don't know if it'll pull up. Well, you can't see it on the screen, but when you click on that link, it brings you the FAQ document up. Oh, he's got it. Sweet. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is the FAQ document that I mentioned. So if you just hit Control F and then type in, employment or salary, it would come up and show you where everything related to with that. So there's a whole FAQ section about spending the funds for premium pay for essential workers. So you could just type in, hit Control F and type in premium pay, and it would tell you all the information you need to know about premium pay. Did that answer the question? Okay, Sarah, do we have any more? Okay. Are there any more questions at all? Okay, before we jump to lunch, I wanted to kind of talk about how this afternoon's going to work. So for all of you who are online, if you have any questions at all about submitting a report, please type them in now. Okay. If you have any questions, just type them in now, and then we can help you with that. So if you haven't started yet and you're online, I would encourage you to try to complete the report, and we can try to troubleshoot with you. For everyone who's in person, and if you would like to submit the report today, we'll be available after lunch to kind of walk you through to make sure that you're able to submit it. And if for some reason you can't submit today, that's okay. We can always help you later. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all for attending today, and all of you online. It's been a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Brenda and Jessica, for coming. So if you guys have any closing thoughts. All right. Well, thank you.